Okay, let's see what they banned this time. No way, Maxi? Oh yeah, this is gonna be a good format. And they banned Nibiru? Okay, this format's gonna be super easy. Okay, let's see about the extra deck. Okay, so far so good. Okay, Baron's not there anymore, that's not that bad. Okay, Zeus as well, that's doable, that's fine. Wait a minute, they banned Caesar? Oh no, come on man! Legend Anthology Event Report. No Caesar, no problem. How's it going guys? This is DD Dreamer here, this time with an event report. The event that we look at this time is Legend Anthology. Usually, this event is the event for us to dominate. But you will see in a couple of minutes why this might be a more difficult task than usual. But first, let's analyze the format. So in Legend Anthology, all main staples hand traps and board breakers are banned. That means we don't have any roaches, we don't have any ghost sisters, we don't have any regular board wipes, and we don't have any kaijus without cost, usually. And in addition to that, we don't have any consistency staples, we don't have any floodgates, and we don't have any generic boss monsters as well. That means we don't have any tactics to worry about so that we get punished. We don't have any hand trap insulators, meaning that when we get hit by a hand trap that is still available, it will hit us. We don't have to worry about back row removal because we don't have any floodgates, so no skill drain, no there can be only one, no anti-spell fragrance. And to the generic extra deck monsters, well, no SP, no Promethean Princess, no Appaloosa, and no Baron. Or Zeus. The only generic extra deck monsters that may come in play already had an anime introduction, for example Access Code or something. But aside from that, the usual threats to our deck are not to be worried about, because they're simply not there. So what hand traps are allowed and what board breakers do exist still? Well, we still have spot negates, meaning we have imperms, effect bailers, and forbidden chalices. We have niche graveyard hand traps, for example Skullmeister and DD Crow. We have exactly one pseudo kaiju with Santa Claus and one mass negate with Dark Ruler No More. We have tribute monsters that require a normal summon, for example Volcanic Queen, Lava Golem, and Sphere Mode, so not every deck can play it. And we have some board breakers limited to one, for example Raigeki, Dark Hole, and Feather Duster. This means that we still have to consider these non-engine while we're playing the game. So don't be too carefree with your DDD combos. Speaking of our deck, let's see what got hit. Konami really did it. They took away our DDD boy and more even. Our wave hiking Solemn Strike is gone, which is rude by the way. We don't have pattern license anymore for consistency combos or recovery or a pseudo lock, and we don't have Eternal Darkness. So basically, they took away our usual game plan. What about the other variants? What about the Kali Yuga lock? Well, the full armored Xyz package is still available, but the only thing that is not available to us is, you've guessed it, Kali Yuga itself. So great, we can't lock anymore. What else? To make matters worse, we've suffered big consistency hits as well. So we don't have Small World, we don't have Nightmare Throne, and we don't have Valence Field spells even. Does this mean our deck is doomed for failure? Of course not. If it would be the case, I wouldn't have done the video in the first place. I will show you in a couple of minutes a pure DDD build which is very funny, a meme even, but still very oppressive and strong. But it requires a little bit of modification and a better knowledge of our opponent. So before I show you the concept of our new portfolio, let us analyze the Legend Anthology format even more. First off, what are the others playing? Let's look at the first loner, Exodia. Probably the strongest pick out of the Legend Anthology event. So what do they end on? They end on a Spell Trap Activation Negate, which is destruction protected, so a tower basically, and buffs itself in damage step to the life points that is currently available to the opponent. In addition to that, on end phase they will search a Heavy Storm or a Field Wipe. Oh, and the Heavy Storm buffs its attack to 10k and does piercing damage by the way. So don't you think you can set your monsters in defense position and call it a day. The spell is a quick spell and the trap is a normal trap, thankfully. Which means we can negate it with Big Genghis. So what is the game plan against Exodia? Even though we don't have a Caesar anymore, our Machinex is the bane of their existence. You see, Machinex attaches not only monsters, but monster cards itself. And the whole gimmick of the Exodia deck is to place the monsters as continuous spells first and then special themselves out, either by revealing a Millennium Arc or by paying 2000 life points. And guess what? Because they are treated as continuous spells, they suffer from the same disadvantage as well. Meaning, if they are not on field anymore for effect activation, the effect fizzles out. This means that if they want to activate a Millennium Shield or Sengenjin and pay 2000 life points to trigger the effect, we can chain Machinax onto them, suck up their monster, and the effect fizzles out. And their move is super telegraphed as well. Meaning if they do pay 2000 life points, that means that they don't have Millennium Ankh in hand. So let's just wait so that they search out the Millennium Shield, let them activate the Millennium Shield, and then chain Machinax onto them so that they don't get to search Ankh regardless. And with no Ankh there will be no Exodia, and with no Exodia there will be no problem. But what if we are going second and Exodia is already on the field with their spell or trap? Well, in that case, we can try to turbo out purple armor and just go for game. Let's move on to the second loner, Volcanics. Burn, burn, burn. So their whole gimmick is to burn you and FTK you in your draw phase. Their key cards are Volcanic Emperor, for example. This guy burns you for every banished pyro for its summoning, and it burns you every time when you special summon something. And that something is quite a lot because we DDDs are paying a lot of taxes. So we can't have that. And to get the rest of the life points down, they usually use Kurenai and Volcanic Emission. And of course, both are searchable traps from the main combo line. And before I show you what we can do against that, I will show you the third loner because it has literally the same gimmick. The third loner is Trickstar. Trickstar rely on burn effects by letting you draw. It doesn't sound that bad, but when you consider it, if they are consistent enough, they can FTK you for sure. So one of their usual suspects is Trickstar Holy Angel. She burns, she protects every monster that she points to, and she gains attack in the difference of the burn damage they dealt you. One of their searchable traps, Maiden of Blue Tears, pops one of your special summoned monsters, burns you, and sets a spell from the grave if burn damage was applied to you. And their second searchable trap, which is by far the most annoying one out there, is called Trickstar Reincarnation. And what Trickstar Reincarnation does is it simply banishes your entire hand, and then it lets you draw the same amount again. So if we are unlucky enough to have like 3 of our one-offs in our starting hand and it gets banished, well, there's nothing much we can do about it. So what can we do about these annoying burn decks? There's this one janky DDD card that usually we don't use, but in this case, it's kind of fire. Leonidas is their one card menace. It specials itself on effect damage, and while on field, you cannot get effect damage at all. So if you drop in on the right time, at the right place, well, they can't do anything about it, and their win condition is gone. And as a level 7, he has a good way into going into Siegfried by either using our Lamia or an Effect Veiler. Okay, but was that all that the event could offer? Well, no, there are still some other strategies left that are quite competent and aren't nerfed at all, or at least to a lesser extent. So I've made a quick spotlight of these decks. Starting with the first non-loner deck, Marincess and their Tower Bounce. So what Marincess does is it's turboing out a big tower, which is an Omni Negate and a bounce. In addition to that, they have this field spell called Marincess Battle Ocean, which basically reads itself like a Tenpai field spell because it makes the extra monster zone a tower and it buffs the attack of all other Marincess monsters on the field. Oh, and of course they have a searchable trap as well. This one is insane, it's called Marincess Wave. It's basically an imperm on crack. First, if they control a Marincess monster with a link of 3 or higher, they can activate it from hand. Yes, you've heard it right, from hand, and then you can target a monster and negate its effects. And on top of all that, you make all monsters currently on their field a tower. So yeah, not fun to play against, especially if you don't have our big Caesar anymore. Next is Salamand Great. Salamand Great has a similar game plan. It sits on a tower called Raging Phoenix and has Salamand Great Roar as their back row. And of course, Roar is searchable as well. And the most annoying part, Roar this time, is a counter trap, meaning you cannot negate Roar with our big Genghis. Oh, and the Omni Negate pops too. Awesome, and it resets itself on the field next turn. And on their turn, they will OTK you with Pyro Phoenix. And this guy is basically a field wipe. And he burns you too. Just for good measure, you know. Lastly, we have Raid Raptor Tower Pass. Raid Raptors have a very linear combo. They have one end goal that they want to achieve. And their end goal is to turbo out 3 towers. Usually 2 Ultimate Falcons and 1 Rising Rebellion Falcon. Rising Rebellion is a tower, a field wipe, a burn, and an effect copy from Grave. While Ultimate Falcon is a tower, an on-summon skill drain, and an attack debuff on end phase. Oh, and did I mention that they of course have a searchable trap as well? This one is called Raid Raptor Barrage, and it's a targeted Omni Negate. And these are all the main threats I've perceived in this event. Of course, there are some other honorable mentions that are not to be taken lightly, like Predaplant, Heroes, or Gimmick Puppets, but I would say these here are the ones that we struggle the most with, typically. Because outing towers is not one of our strong suits. So what can we do about all this? Well, the idea is simple. We go full anime. And what that means is, well, we're gonna turbo out our own towers. Usually summoning them is pretty janky, but in this low power format, yeah, they become a serious threat. So our ultimate anime endboard consists of 4 pieces. From left to right, we have Bright Armor, Siegfried, Machinex, and Dark Armor. Bright and Dark in conjunction are target protection and destruction protection for all Pentament monsters, meaning they make Machinex targeting protected and destruction protected. Machinex functions now basically like our Dragoon. And optimally, Machinex has up to 4 attaches with 2 contracts up. This means that your opponent has to deal with 4 monster removals once per chain. And to top it all off, with Siegfried, we have a spell trap negate as well. And he's untargetable too, just not destruction protected sadly. Oh, and in our turn, Dark Armor is a good board break as well. He can pop as many monsters the opponent currently controls, up to the number of pent monsters we currently control. And to make matters worse for the opponent, we go and add some other nice things. These additional endboard pieces could be Gilga for a float and a follow-up, Oracle King Dark for the burn matchups, and DDD Headhunt, which negates and snatch steals. And to be honest, Machinex and Headhunt alone are usually enough for this Legend Anthology event, because most decks aren't equipped to deal with a snatch steal which negates the monster and keeps the monster for ourselves up until the end of next turn. So go figure, right? You can find my sample deck list below in my video description. I've published it on Master Duel Meta, since this deck already did a nasty win streak from day 1. And if you have any questions on why I picked certain cards, you can comment down below, I will explain it to you. And now, before we go into our anime combos, let us make sure to remember the card placement, because this time it's especially important since we clutter the board a lot. You got it? Perfect. Now let's create the ultimate portfolio. First is Gryphon and Gryphon, by far the weakest combo out of all of them. After summoning both out, we go into our Gilgamesh, and then we're gonna set Orthros and Ragna scales. After that, we're gonna pen summon both out again, and then we go into our Caesar. Afterwards, we overlay into our Tell, and with Tell, we're gonna burn the opponent. Then we're gonna trigger Orthros to pop Tell in itself. And then with Tell, we're gonna Foolish Vice Typhon. Vice Typhon now goes into Big Genghis. And then we go into our Machinex. Big Genghis now triggers and revives our Gryphon. And now we go Chainlink 1 Ragna to revive our Caesar and Chainlink 2 Gryphon to grab ourselves an Orthros. Orthros now specials itself. With Gryphon and Orthros, we go into our Siegfried. Then we use Caesar and Big Genghis to go into our second Gilga. Now we go ahead and grab ourselves a gate. And with gate, we're gonna search out our next follow-up piece. In this case, our Kepler. And while this doesn't seem like a lot, we still have a spell trap negate, 2 attaches, and 1 floater with Gilga. And Gilga can now float in either a Big Genghis, a Caesar, or a Tell, which is guaranteed follow-up, super important, and we can chain reborn 2 times because of Ragna as scale. Remember that. Orthros and Gryphon gives us our first tower. First, special summon both out again, then we link both off into our Gilga so that we can set Orthros and Ragna scales, obviously. Afterwards, we're going to Pentaman out Gryphon and Orthros. Then we're going to overlay into our Caesar, and after we go into our Caesar, we link him off right away with our second Gilgamesh. We go chaining 1 Caesar to grab us a gate and chaining 2 Ragna to revive our Gryphon. Gryphon now activates and searches us Vice Typhon. And with gate in hand, we're going to search ourselves a Swirl. With Swirl in hand, we go into our first big Genghis. And with our Vice Typhon engrave, now we go into our second big Genghis. Afterwards, we're going to reborn our Orthros. And with Gryphon and Orthros, we can go now into our Siegfried. And with the 2 big Genghis, we go into our Dark Armor. On summon, we're gonna activate our Dark Armor to get our Gryphon attached. And lastly, we overlay into Machinax. And now our opponent is staring down an indestructible Machinax with a spell trap negate being Siegfried. And we have plenty of follow-up in the grave. Copper and Orthros gets us to both armors. We're gonna use Copper to foolish a Swirl so that we can special out our Orthros from the hand. We link both into Gilga, and Gilga now sets, of course, Orthros and Ragna. With both, we're gonna overlay into our Caesar and then into our Tell right away, and burn the opponent, of course. Then we're gonna use Orthros' effect to pop Tell in itself. And with Tell, we're gonna foolish our Vice Typhon. With Vice Typhon in the grave, we go into our big Genghis. And then we're gonna trigger our Ragna to revive our Caesar, and then trigger our big Genghis to revive our Tell. We're gonna use Tell and Caesar to go into our second Gilgamesh. And go chaining 1 Caesar to search us a Swamp King, and chaining 2 Tell to get us our Necro. Then we're gonna activate our Swamp King so that we can go into our small Genghis. And then we're gonna overlay into our Machinax so that we can trigger our Genghis revive again. And this time we revive our Orthros. And with the Orthros we go into our Bright Armor. And with Necro Engrave we go into our second big Genghis. And lastly, we finish off with the Dark Armor as well. And on summon, Dark Armor attaches itself in Orthros. A Dragoon Machinax, there we go. Copper and Gryphon create the strongest 2-card endboard. First we're going to foolish our Vice Typhon, then we're going to special out our Gryphon so that we can go into our Gilgamesh. But this time with Gilgamesh, we are not going to set Orthros and Ragna, but with Thomas instead. We're going to Pentaman out Gryphon and Copper. We're going to overlay into our Caesar, then we're going to pop the Caesar right away with Orthros. Caesar will now grab us our gates. We're gonna activate gates now to get us a Swirl. And with Thomas, we get our Orthros back. Now we're gonna trigger our Vice Typhon to go into our big Genghis. And with Swirl in hand, we go into our small Genghis. Now first we're gonna reborn our Gryphon. And now we go chaining one Gryphon Search, the second Orthros, chaining 2 Genghis, reviving the first Orthros from the grave. Now we go into our Bright Armor. Then we activate Swirl from the grave to special out our second Orthros from the hand, and with Gryphon and Orthros we go into our Siegfried. Lastly, we go into our Machina and then pass. All our monsters are now target protected, and we have 2 attaches, 1 spell trap negate, and 1 float. And the float can go into either small Genghis or Caesar as follow-up. Okay, this combo has 2 armors as well. We're gonna start off by grabbing ourselves our Gryphon. Then we're gonna fuse Swirl with Gryphon. We go into our small Genghis. Then we're gonna banish our Swirl in the grave so that we can special our Gryphon again with Genghis. Gryphon now then grabs us Orthros. Then we're gonna normal summon Orthros and go into our Bride. With that, we can now safely go into our Gilgamesh and scale our Orthros and Thomas. Now we're gonna pan summon out our Orthros and Gryphon. Then we're gonna overlay Orthros and Gryphon into Caesar and then into Tell. Then we burn all the opponent, and then we grab ourselves our Ragna. And now we pop Tell with Orthros. Tell now foolish as Necro. And now we can scale Ragna. With Necro we go into our first big Genghis. And with that we can chain reborn now with Ragna and big Genghis. We're gonna revive our Caesar. And with big Genghis we're gonna revive our Tell. And now we're gonna link off both Tell and Caesar with Gilgamesh. Then we're gonna chain link 1 Caesar to grab Swarm and chain link 2 Tell to foolish our Vice Typhon. Now we can use our Vice Typhon to go into our second big Genghis, and with that we can now go safely into Dark. On summon, Dark will grab Thomas. And now, for good measure, we go into our Swamp King and fuse into Oracle King Dark. Lastly, we're going to use one of our spare Gilgameshes to go into Machina. All your panel monsters are now destruction protected, and we are target protected. And in addition to that, we have a floater with Gilgamesh to go into Caesar from the grave, so that we can follow up with another contract. And if our opponent wants to burn, he can, because we have Oracle King Dark. Okay, this right here is an alternative line with Ragna, Swirl and Gate. We're gonna grab ourselves a Gryphon again. Same as usual, we go into our small Genghis, and from then on, we're gonna revive our Gryphon by specialing out our Ragna. But this time, Gryphon now grabs us our Copper. Copper then foolishes our Necro Slime on normal summon. Now we go into our Caesar right away, and then we're gonna link off with Ragna and Caesar into Gilgamesh. We're gonna go Chainlink 1, grab Swarm with Caesar, and Chainlink 2, Gilgamesh, scale Orthros and Kepler. Now we're gonna pan summon out our Ragna so that we can revive our Caesar back from grave. With Caesar on the field, we can now go into our Tell, burn the opponent, and use Tell's body to go with our small Genghis into our first big Genghis. Tell now triggers and foolishes our Lamia. With Necro we go into our Oracle King Dark. And with that, Big Genghis now revives our Tell again. Now we're gonna use Lamia so that we can foolish our Tell and then get Lamia on the field in turn. Tell now foolishes Vice Typhon from the deck. And for the finishing touches, we go into our Siegfried. Then we're gonna use our Vice Typhon in the grave to go into our second Big Genghis. Now we're gonna overlay into our Dark. And lastly, we overlay into our Machinax. Here we go. Machinax is now destruction protected, and we have 4 attaches, 1 Siegfried spell trap negate, and a floater with Gilgamesh. We can either float into our small Genghis or Caesar for follow-up. Swirl, Copper, and Gate get us 2 armors as well. We're gonna start off by grabbing ourselves, of course, a Gryphon again. Then we're gonna fuse Swirl with Gryphon into small Genghis. Then we're gonna special out our Copper with Swirl, and we're gonna revive our Gryphon with Genghis. We're gonna Chainlink 1 Foolish Necro with Copper and Chainlink 2 do the revive with Genghis. Gryphon now grabs us Orthros, and with Orthros we're gonna go into Bright. Now we go ahead and use Necro to fuse into our Big Genghis right away. And with Copper and Gryphon we go into our Gilgamesh and scale either Orthros and Ragna, or we can scale our Leo and Ragna, depending on whether you play Leo or not. I did it just because I don't trust the burn matchups. We're gonna pan summon out our Copper and Orthros. Then we go into our Caesar, and then we're gonna link him off right away with our second Gilgamesh. We're gonna go Chainlink 1 Caesar so that we can grab Swamp, Chainlink 2 Big Genghis to revive Caesar. With Caesar, we can now go into our Tell and burn the opponent. And now we're gonna use Swarm and Tell to go into our Oracle King Dark. With Tell we can now either go into our Lamia or we can go into our Vice Typhon. This time I chose Vice Typhon, and I can revive our Tell again. Because depending on the matchup, you can either pivot from going into our Siegfried or just letting Oracle King Dark stay on the field. It is generally advised to end on Siegfried, but this time I just wanted to show you the versatility of the combo so that we can still let the Oracle King Dark stay depending on whether they play Trickstar or Volcanic, for example. So they have to first out Oracle King Dark and the Leo in scale. Lastly, we're gonna overlay into our machinics with our Tell, and now we have 4 attachers with machinics who's untargetable, indestructible, and we have a floater with Gilgamesh. And Gilgamesh has as targets Caesar engraved so that we can have good follow-up next turn. This time it's basically the same hand again, just with Gryphon, but I will show you the alternative endboard with Siegfried. First, we're gonna start off by fusing our Gryphon and Swirl away into our small Genghis, and then we're gonna special out our copper in hand with Swirl, and we're gonna go Chainlink 1, Foolish our Necro, and Chainlink 2, revive our Gryphon from grave with small Genghis. Gryphon now grabs us our Orthros. Then we're gonna go ahead and normal summon Orthros again, and we're gonna go into our bright armor. And with Copper and Gryphon, I go into our Gilgamesh, but this time I will scale Orthros and Ragna, just as usual, instead of Leo, to just show you that you don't need Leo for this combo. Now we go ahead and pen summon both out again, meaning Gryphon and Copper, and then we're gonna overlay into our Caesar. And then we're gonna use Necro in the grave to go into our first big Genghis. And then we're gonna link off Caesar into our second Gilgamesh. And go Chainlink 1, grab our Swarm, and Chainlink 2, revive our Caesar from the grave with big Genghis. Now we go ahead and overlay into our Tell, burn the opponent, and go into our Orca King Dark. We go Chainlink 1 Tell, but this time we Foolish Lamia instead, and Chainlink 2 Ragna to revive our Tell again. Now we go ahead and use Lamia to special itself on the field by Foolishing Tell, and Tell now Foolishes Vice Typhon. With Vice Typhon we now go into our second big Genghis. Then we overlay into our Dark. On summon, Dark will now attach Orthros, and with Lamia and Orca King Dark we go into Siegfried. And with Gilgamesh, we overlay into machinics. Remember, this combo you can do with any Gate, Swirl, Copper or Gryphon variation whatsoever. Swirl, Copper and Gryphon create the most absurd endboard, and I will show you how. With this end you can end on the same endboard just now, or be a bit more greedy and end on a very insane one. As usual, we're gonna Chainlink 1 Copper to Foolish Necro, Chainlink 2 revive our Gryphon back from the grave again, so that we can grab a DD, or a DD trap card. Here comes the twist. We're gonna grab ourselves a Kepler. We're gonna normal summon our Kepler, so that we can now get us our Gate, and with Gate we can grab an Orthros. To play around spot negation, we overlay into our Caesar right away and use Caesar and Kepler to link off into Gilgamesh. And here comes the funny part. Because we don't have Ash Blossom, we don't have to chain block necessarily, and we go Chainlink 1 Gilgamesh, Chainlink 2 Caesar. We're gonna grab ourselves a Swamp, and then we're gonna set Orthros and Ragna, and I put Gilgamesh to Chainlink 1 so that the burn effect procs last, so that I can special out my Orthros from the hand. And with that, I can now go to the Bright Armor, and then I can pen summon out Orthros again. With Necro engraved, we're gonna go into our first big Genghis. Now we're gonna pen summon out our one Orthros out of the face-up extra deck. And then we're gonna revive our Caesar from the grave. With Caesar, we're gonna now overlay into our tail and burn the opponent. We're gonna use Swarm so that we can fuse our tail away into our Oracle King Dark. We go Chainlink 1 tail to foolish our Vice Typhon, Chainlink 2 Ragna to revive our Gryphon out of the graveyard. With Gryphon Orthros, we now go to our Siegfried. And with Vice Typhon in the grave, we go into our second big Genghis. Then we go ahead and overlay into our Dark Armor. On summon, it will attach itself a Kepler. And we're gonna finish off with overlaying into Machinex. Our opponent now has to out 2 towers, 1 Machinex that attaches 4 times, a Spell Trap negates Siegfried, and a Life Converter being Oracle King Dark. Yeah, this is the perfect portfolio for this event, I think. I hope for them that they have Kaijus or Dark Ruler. And to give you a small taste on how the deck performs, here's a snippet. Alright, that's it. That's the end of my first event report. Hope you liked it. And yeah, I know. This combo is very resource heavy and overextending. But it's not like we get punished for it this time, right? So might as well feel more like the anime and overpower anyone with our cross-dimensional demons. Even the poor Dark Magician players. And laugh at all the Burn FTK players that just stare down a weird guy with a shield while they can't do anything about it. So my fellow associates, I give you a task. Let's spread some chaos and wreak some havoc in this Legend Anthology. And show Konami that we are way more than just a High King Caesar pass. This has been DD Dreamer again, over and out. See you next time.